Hello, good afternoon. Nice to meet you all today. It's a matter of luck that I followed panel discussion about digital transformation. I'm going to pick some of it as well. Before we start, let me introduce my organization and what we do. So, I represent a company called Kissflow. We've been partnering large enterprises to formulate and roll out the digital transformation strategy as such. Right? Some of them which we have already worked out are listed here. We have about 10,000 customers across the globe in about 120 countries as such. Right? In Philippines, we have already worked with 7-Eleven, CDO, and so on. Right? I'm going to share what our learnings in this particular process with working with these enterprises are. I'm going to dwell a little bit deeper about something which has been a bit of a craze, I would say, in Philippines as such, which is citizen development. Everybody is talking about it, but nobody is able to master it, right? It's about how, .com was in the 90s as such. Everybody says, you have a website, I can fund you, right? That sort of a craze is there. And we're going to talk a little bit deeper about what citizen development is, what it means, and how you can actually turbocharge an entire organization. A little bit about our company. We've already been rated one of the top performers in terms of citizen development. Coming from Forrester and Gartner. We are no bug with it in terms of what we do and how we do it. Right? Now, very first question. It's like it's got zoomed out. Alright, I know the content. So, typically, your organization is the same, right? 70% of your IT workforce just is needed to maintain the current system, right? Just to run things in your organization. And what happened in the last 5 to 6 years, I'm sure this topic has been dwelt upon and upon, is that digital transformation has now become a mandate. We can't wait. One COVID gave us a good lesson that paper forms are something which is going to die. Or if you persist, your organization is going to die. Right? There are about 2.5 million, applications which has to be built. Right? And there is a loss accumulating to that. And the kind of volume of application to be built is about 750 million applications. And world has not enough developers to do this. Right? And what we are looking to see is how we can leverage citizen development as such, because there's only typically two ways, right? Either you have to go to an LCAP, because traditional coding is too slow at this moment, or we've got to adopt something called the citizen development as such. Some of our colleagues till this point have developed or dwelled in thought about LCAP. We would want to talk about CADP as such, right? Now, what is citizen development? Gartner says, and I read it, citizen developers is employee building applications for themselves, right? Fantastic, right? And using the tools that are not banned by the company as such. But what really is citizen development? If, I'm not talking about what Nicholas said, right? There are people who are afraid of excess. Now, who is the real citizen developer here? I would actually give it slightly different. Now, to be honest, if citizen development has to happen, the first problem has to be there. Number one, we have a lot of unmet business needs, which typically is there in every organization. Then you add burnt out IT, because IT can only focus on few things. You don't have an unlimited army of people working for you in your organization. Right? With 50, 60, 100, 200 IT folks, you would be able to do only one thing. Outcome, very frustrated business users. What do these users do? Complain, complain, complain. One fine time, there's one guy in the department who says, you know what, I'm done with it. I need to solve this problem. You have a problem solver, right? What happens after this is where I and Gartner are feeling very different, right? What Gartner says is that not the tool is bad, but actually if you don't give them any support or anything, what they become is a shadow IT as such. That is, they run their own kingdom. Now, it always happens in a department, there's one guy who says, I can solve the problem, just give me some money to do it. And the department head is now forced, because I cannot come and solve the problem for him. Because IT has its own priority, which is kind of listed from the organization. He will say, I will give you $10,000, or will you do something in Excel? And there goes everything. Your compliance goes for a toss, your security, data security is up for a huge risk, and so on. What you end up actually creating is a shadow IT as such, right? What changes is if you change the lack of support from a blessing of organization, the fundamental of this whole execution changes. Then and then only it becomes citizen development. In my words, citizen development is when business user solve the problem which the organization wants to be solved in a way organization wants it to be solved. Then and then only it becomes citizen development. That is, there should be a real-time synergy from these empowered users, what problem they're solving, in a way which the organization wanted predictable, right? In many ways, I feel it is just not a technology change. It's a cultural change. Just what even Rahul was also saying, right? It's no more about technology. It's a cultural change. It's a mindset change. So, or anybody who do citizen development, it's not a one-off activity. It's not like a bunch of users who are bigger in every department who are trying to solve the problem. It's the other way around, right? It's something which starts from the top of the management and goes in, because you need to build around three pillars. Three pillars. Technology, people, process, right? Without these three pillars, no organization would be able to build a citizen development program, right? In the end of the presentation, I'm going to share a case study of one of the top 5 BFSI organizations in Philippines and how they use these 3 principles from using our help to build their own citizen development program in their organization, right? Now, in due course of time, I'm going to break myths like this. I'm going to go on say 3 myths what's happening about citizen development, what everybody feels and why it is different, right? Number 1, citizen development is a replacement for IT work, right? I think some of you would feel like that, especially if I go to places like Singapore, they feel it's a threat for their job, right? But in reality, it's totally different. If you look at it, IT priorities are already well defined. In an organization, work happens only at 3 levels, right? Something which is at a very high, you look at the highest level of the organization, which is priority. The second is that you look at the departmental level, and then you look at what is called as the work group level. More often than not, IT can never go beyond half of the departmental level because it's too small, it's too specific, and too less of an ROI to deploy a bunch of developers and build up a huge project to sustain, right? So, what in reality is that there is a clear-cut distinction or a marquee point saying that, hey, beyond this, it's what IT should focus on. Below this is what you want actually citizen development to happen. In many ways, it's not a replacement, but actually reinforcement of the direction in which the organization wants to proceed, right? You know, let's make it one more step. If you look at organization, this is a standard way they work. There is a huge fatigue problem, which IT has to be supposed to champion to solve this problem. I'm talking about ERPs, SAPs, your core banking systems and so on, right? Which only the IT can touch. Nobody else can do anything on that. It's far more complex. But always in an organization, there is a long tail of business-specific challenges, which is very less ROI, but the volume of the problem is massive, right? In any organization which has 10,000 users, easily they would need at least 2,000 to 3,000 applications to be automated. Do you imagine the kind of volume we are talking about? Would even when IT be able to spec all of this, right? That's the challenge we are looking at, right? So, in no ways, it's a replacement, it's an augmentation of the workforce as such. Secondly, citizen development is chaotic, right? It's one of the easiest way to say, it's chaos, don't bring that to me, right? So, often the belief system is, IT is streamlined and business isn't. But it's actually the other way around. IT is streamlined because you put a body which governs and sets a practice in terms of what to do and how to do. Often, shadow IT is what chaotic is. But the minute you put a framework of process into the angle, citizen development chaos can be controlled and propelled in a way that proposes that betterments the organization as well. Now, I'm just showing you two pyramids which shows the other end of the spectrum. In a typical shadow IT, the first challenge is nobody knows who's doing what, right? Because there are a bunch of users hidden in each department doing something unless it pops out in an audit, where it's already too late, you will never get to know it, right? Second, right, there is no alignment in the organization strategy as such. What finance do, HR wouldn't even know, because there is some random guy sitting in their department and doing it, right? But in a citizen development, it's the other way around. Your CDOs and CIOs are the one who actually say, this is the way I want to solve the problem, and I'm defining it so that everybody can come, lend a hand, and solve your own problem. I will be your partner in helping you to build it up. It's a systematic program which you build, right? So it's a top-down approach. Second, citizen development is going to be governed by IT, which means there is always an incremental development. Like, we initially started everything as a waterfall model in IT development, right? Today, nobody builds things in waterfall, right? They build it in agile, they say sprint. Now they're even going one more step in terms of how they run sprints, right? All these developmental changes comes because there is somebody who puts their thought in terms of how do I go about it. In shadow IT, nobody takes that stand as it. When you take it as a citizen development, there is a high visibility. The platform is controlled from your end, which means security leaks are never going to happen, right? And the last part is, when IT takes the decision of what to handle, one, they're actually the qualified guy to evaluate any software. No business user would be able to evaluate the software, at least at this scale as such, at least at this volume as such. So you're giving the power in the right part, and that is why chaos is contained in citizen development if you do it in the right way or something, right? Next, citizen development risks adoption, right? One of the biggest challenges, or some of your IT leaders here would actually tell me, is that I built something, the very first thing is, my business says, you know what, I thought it would be different. And here there are a bunch of things I want to take as change request, right? There's no project which we would have delivered without a change request, right? Do you know why? Have anybody thought why? In my culture, when a wife cooks, the husband says 100 things which is wrong. But when a husband cooks, he never says anything is wrong. That is, when they solve the problem themselves, they actually know precisely what is needed. And they don't add the bells and whistles at all, right? So the mind of a business user, we are talking here is, I have a problem, I want to solve it. He's at that desperate state, right? Which means he clearly knows of the 10 things he has to solve. I only want to focus on 4 things which will help me take the MVP out, right? With which I can solve the problem. Then I can add the 5th, the 6th, the 7th. Probably can work with 8 and 9, right? The articulation here is, when I am part of the business, then I know I am facing the problem with my colleagues, right? I'm not trying to tell to somebody on how to solve the problem. I'm actually trying to solve the problem. The second part is, if somebody is coming and saying, you know what, this has a bit of a challenge, who can challenge his domain authority? Because he's from the business. He can actually say, you know what, I've been doing this for 10 years myself, right? I know what to say. We can have a conversation for that here, right? The notion completely changes as such. And one thing which we always have seen in businesses, amongst themselves, there is a unity to convince as such the others as well in terms of what is needed and what is not needed, right? So even the adoption part is actually not true, right? Now, I know it looks, a little bit in terms of, hey, this is too good to be true. But in reality, this has been always there. Organizations which have adopted this have moved much faster because they have had more hands on the deck. I'm going to talk about one of the largest BFSI organizations or banks in Philippines as such, right? They have about 25,000 people working for them. They have about 900 branches in Philippines and Hong Kong. They had everything in Lotus Notes. You know Lotus Notes is dead for many decades now. But they never had the intention to do it because they don't know how to move it. We are talking about thousands and thousands of Lotus Note applications. The other problem is they don't even know who created this Lotus Note application. The guy would have left the company long time back, right? Now, the problem is they have in hand is IT is already over. Right? They have too many things in their hand. They can't go and sit and spec out these 1,000 applications. They don't know which is relevant, which is irrelevant, what is needed to the current standard of digitalization, right? There is more resources there. The third part is business implementing the solution, deciding shadow IT. Because if they're going to wait for business to the IT to solve the problem, they're not going to wait. Right? One point of time, somebody's going to put an Excel and say, hey, this is how you solve the problem. If you want to purchase order, fill this Excel and send it to me in email. Right? What that means is that everything is going under the radar. Right? This is the problem they came with. What we did is that we did an entire study, right? We built a complete custom citizen development program for them, right? We took into consideration saying that, hey, this problem is not solvable in 1 day or 1 year. You know that, we know that, right? Let's put a 3-year program for this. What do you want to do? Can we plot out a bucket list of items you want to work on? And who do you think are your champions? I want you to define first level champions, second level champions, third level champions. Let's put up a program to this, right? And then we went ahead and did multiple workshops and training. What complemented them is that, one, we know what we are doing from a citizen development angle. We're able to educate them and tutor them along wherever they needed our help. Second, we have a wonderful platform as such. Everything in Kissflow is drag and drop, right? Which means even the person who has zero coding knowledge would be able to build anything and everything, right? Now, one of my customers, HR team came in a space of 4-hour workshop. They actually built an entire ATS as such. We are talking about HRs here, by the way. They built a system. When is the last time your HR built any system in your organization? Right? Now, today, they have about 18,500 users using Kissflow. But only application which is built by business. Imagine that, right? How many people are getting benefited? There are about 2.75 million requests in every year in that particular platform which they consume as such. Right? That's quite some, right? And they have about 1,100 processes built in the space of 3 years. That's almost a process a day, right? That is the level and the scale which they were able to establish in the space of 3 years, right? I had a lot of support from them, you gotta be honest, right? Their CIO is extremely committed for this program as such, and there is a huge mentorship there. Whenever now we are trying to do a workshop, there are 250 people queuing up to say, I want to be part of this workshop. Because they're seeing their colleague who just used to be with them now knows Kissflow, and they're able to build things in Kissflow, and they're able to land in the footsteps of their directors. Not even managers, directors, because they get a higher visibility, right? And look at some of the things which they are solving, right? CapEx requests, credit approvals. These are all typically could be gaps in the system, right? And these are isolated systems which they can't work on. What Kissflow enabled them is that they will simply not think, if I have a problem to solve digitally, I will look at Kissflow for it. And that's it, right? And I know who to go if I need support in Kissflow, right? Just to summarize it, what Kissflow does is that it provides an inclusive platform, right? It enables IT to build their own applications in Kissflow using the low-code facet as such. It also helps the citizen development to build and solve their own no-code problem. If IT continued to use Lotus Note would have not been dead by now. Because IT moved to newer technologies, they just left the citizen development hanging there. Right? If you use a product like Kissflow, it cuts save everything as such, right? If some of you want to have more about citizen development, you want to kickstart your programs, we are in the mood. You can also come and have a word with us. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Rakesh.